I always preferred winter hiking. The cold air keeps your head clear, and the silence feels deeper, like the world is holding its breath. But last December, I learned there are things in the woods that don't sleep, no matter how frozen the ground gets. My friend Carter and I set out for a 3-day trip deep inside Ridgway State Forest, a place known for its rough terrain and sparse patrols. At the trailhead, a ranger was finishing paperwork inside his truck. He wasn't supposed to be there. This part of the forest had been temporarily closed for maintenance, according to the notice online. But he waved us over anyway. "You boys heading in?" he asked, though his tone sounded more like a warning than a question. "Just a weekend trip," Carter said. "We're going off trail." The ranger paused. His eyes moved over our packs, then the tree line behind us, like he was expecting someone, or something, to step out of it. "I'd keep to marked areas," he said. "Strange activity in there at night. If you see anything unusual, turn back. Don't go looking for answers." He shut his door before we could ask anything else and drove off down a service road that wasn't on any map we had. We joked about it at first, pretending he was some Forest Lodge horror movie extra trying to spook campers. But a part of me couldn't shake the seriousness in his voice. People don't usually talk like that unless they've seen something. The freezing air numbed us as we bushwhacked deeper and deeper into the forest. The snow was thin, just enough to give the world a muted gray look. By late afternoon, the sun sank behind tall pines and shadows stretched long across the ground. We found a clearing near a half-frozen creek and set up our tent, making sure to inspect the area thoroughly. No tracks, no debris, no signs of anyone passing through for weeks. Just untouched wilderness. We cooked dinner and sat by the fire, listening to the creek and the occasional snapping branch somewhere in the distance. Normal forest noises, until they weren't. At one point, everything went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. The air felt heavier, like a thickness settling over the clearing. Eventually Carter crawled into the tent, and I stayed out a bit longer to put out the fire entirely. I walked around the entire perimeter with my headlamp, cutting through the darkness to check the trees. Nothing. Not a single movement. Not a single sound. By the time I got inside, Carter was already snoring. I fell asleep fast, wrapped in my sleeping bag, thinking the worst I'd deal with that night was the cold seeping through the tent floor. But I was wrong. I woke before sunrise, the inside of the tent icy and dim. When I unzipped the door to step out, the cold air slapped me awake. And that's when I saw it. A small, dirty blue teddy bear sat upright on a flat rock just 4 feet from our tent, perfectly positioned, with its ragged face turned toward the door, like it had been watching us sleep. At first, I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. The bear wasn't there yesterday. I would have noticed a bright blue toy sitting on a rock I walked past at least a dozen times. The thing was soaked, matted, and old, its stuffing bulging in places, one plastic eye scratched white. But what chilled me the most was the way it sat. Not slumped like a forgotten toy. It was balanced perfectly upright, legs out, arms placed evenly at its sides, head angled ever so slightly toward our tent door. Someone had positioned it intentionally. I backed slowly inside, grabbed Carter's shoulder, and shook him awake. He muttered something, annoyed, until he looked out through the open tent flap. His whole expression changed. Fear hit him instantly. "Where did that come from?" he whispered. "I don't know. It wasn't there last night. Someone walked right up to us. In the dark? Without waking us?" he said. The frozen leaves and hard ground should have made every step loud. But we'd heard nothing. Not even a twig snap. We stepped outside, staying close together. The forest looked the same as always, quiet, empty still. But it didn't feel empty. It felt watched. We checked the area for footprints, but the frost was too solid, the layer of needles too thick. No impressions at all. Whoever did this moved with impossible silence. "We're leaving," Carter said. "Now." We packed quickly, barely speaking, glancing nervously at the trees every few seconds. The air felt tight around us, thick with the sense of being observed. Every gust of wind made us jump. We left the bear on the rock. Halfway back toward the trailhead, we heard something behind us. A single crunch, maybe two, like footsteps following at a measured distance. We'd stop, and the woods would go silent again. After 10 minutes of this, we stopped talking completely. We just pushed forward as fast as the terrain allowed. Near the start of the trail, I noticed fresh tire tracks cutting through the snow, leading onto that same unmarked service road the ranger had taken. It wasn't part of any official map, and wasn't maintained for public use. Something, or someone, used it regularly. We reached the parking lot just before noon. The ranger's truck was gone. The place was deserted. We threw our gear into the car and locked the doors immediately. Only then, sitting behind the glass, did we feel any relief, but even then, only barely. Because as we pulled out, I caught sight of something on a tree near the lot. A second teddy bear. Same blue color. Same worn face. But this one was nailed to the trunk, head turned toward the trail we just escaped from. Carter saw it too but didn't say a word. He didn't have to. We didn't stumble into a harmless prank. We walked into someone's territory. Someone running operations deep in the woods where nobody's supposed to go. And someone wanted us to know they saw us. Someone wanted to warn us off. Or worse, they wanted to mark us. I haven't camped in the backcountry since. Not after learning the forest isn't empty. It's just hiding who owns it. I had always thought winter nights were peaceful, the frost and silence calming in a strange way. But that December evening in 2020 shattered any illusion I had of safety. The lockdown had left the town nearly deserted, the streets empty, and the world muted under a thin layer of snow. I was preparing for my evening shift at the hospital when I noticed something unsettling. My new neighbor's guest. A man in his 50s, he lingered near the house next door, his gaze lingering on me far too long, unnerving in a way that made my stomach knot. For a week, I'd caught him watching me, following my movements from the windows, whispering as if he knew more about me than I realized. That night, he stepped outside as I left the house, his eyes locked on me, unblinking, as if he had been waiting. "You look amazing," he said, his voice low and deliberate. My heart thumped in my chest. That wasn't casual friendliness, it was a warning. Every instinct screamed that something was off, that I was being sized up like prey. I jumped into my car, fumbling with my glasses and shivering in the freezing air. Relief washed over me when I realized he had disappeared from the street, but it was fleeting. The road to the hospital was quiet and twisted, a back route forced by local closures. As I drove through the frost-coated lanes, I felt eyes on me, though I could see nothing. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating patches of white, but nothing else. Then it happened. A soft thump beneath the car jolted me. The back left tire was flat. I cursed under my breath and got out to inspect it, panic creeping up my spine. The tire wasn't just flat, it had been deliberately slashed. My phone was in my hand, but before I could call for help, headlights appeared behind me, blinding in the icy darkness. A strong, gloved hand slammed over my mouth. My breath caught in my chest as shock froze me. A familiar voice hissed, "Hands behind your back, Mississippi." It was him, Alec. Everything clicked into place in a horrifying instant. He hadn't been watching casually. He had been planning. The cold bit at my skin as I struggled, realizing I wasn't just in danger, I was being hunted. And lurking in the shadows, I sensed more than one presence. I couldn't think. Every survival instinct in me screamed to run, but my legs were stiff, my hands soon taped behind my back. Alec's movements were deliberate, his control absolute, as if he had rehearsed this many times. My heart pounded, but my mind sharpened. If I froze, I would be at his mercy. I had to find a way out. I waited for a moment when he moved around the car, distracted, and kicked my legs hard enough to break free. He hadn't bound them securely. Adrenaline surged through me, and I struck him with everything I had. My kick caught him off guard, and he fell to the snow-covered ground with a grunt. The others, those shadows I had sensed, were still waiting in the tree line, but for the moment, I had a chance. I ripped at the tape across my mouth and hands, gasping for air. My breath steamed in the freezing night, mingling with the fog of panic and fury. Every instinct told me to run, to reach the road where help might exist. I grabbed my phone, dialing the emergency number with trembling fingers, but my eyes never left the darkness around me. Alex struggled to rise, dazed, but I didn't stop. I backed toward my car, kicking and swinging until I managed to climb in, locking the doors just as he regained his footing. The engine roared to life, tires spinning briefly on ice before gripping the road. I sped off, heart hammering, lights cutting through the winter black. Behind me, I thought I saw movement, but the shadows vanished before I could confirm. By the time I reached the hospital parking lot, the streets were silent again, deceptively peaceful. Police arrived quickly after I called, but the evidence was chilling: slashed tires, footprints in the snow, and signs that Alec hadn't been alone. A stash of ropes and tools suggested this wasn't an impulsive attack. It was part of something more sinister, some secret operation in the shadows of the quiet town. He was arrested, of course, but the thought lingered like frost on glass. What else had he planned? Who else was watching? The roads I once drove without a second thought now felt like traps, lined with unseen eyes. Every winter night since, I can't shake the memory of that snow, the gloved hands, and the shadows waiting just beyond the headlights. Even with him caught, I know the forest of secrets he belonged to hasn't fully revealed itself. And every time I pass a quiet, frosted road in the dark, I wonder if someone is still watching, waiting for the right moment. The terror of that night is frozen in me, unresolved, a warning I can never ignore. I work at a warehouse about 30 miles outside of town, mostly moving boxes and loading trucks for night shifts. In the dead of February, when the wind cuts through your jacket and the roads freeze over, the drive home feels like you're the last person alive. That night, a heavy snowstorm had rolled in around midnight, coating everything in a thick, gray blanket. By the time my shift ended at 2:15 a.m., the highway was a mess: slick ice patches, snow drifting across the lanes, headlights reflecting off the frost. Traffic was non-existent, and the thought of another 20-minute stretch in the blizzard made my shoulders tense. Usually, I take the main highway, but the radio warned of a jackknife semi blocking 2 lanes. Too tired to fight through the mess, I turned onto a winding back road that cut through farmland and dense woods. In the daytime, it's a quiet, almost serene route. At night, in February, it becomes something else entirely: a black tunnel of wind and snow. The heater on full blast barely touched the chill, and every shadow flickered like it was alive in the corner of my eyes. I'd been driving maybe 15 minutes when I saw it. A shape on the right shoulder, half buried in a snowdrift. My stomach tightened. At first, I thought someone had slid off the road, maybe an abandoned car hidden in the ditch. I slowed, rolling my window down to call out, "Hey! You okay?" My voice was swallowed instantly by the wind. The figure didn't move. I grabbed my flashlight from the glove box and stepped out, boots crunching in the ice. As I got closer, I realized it wasn't a crash victim. The man sat up violently, his face flushed and eyes wide, but not in pain. He shouted something, but his words weren't meant for me. They were directed behind him, toward the edge of the forest. My first thought was confusion. How was this possible? He pointed vaguely into the trees and yelled that his car was there, yet I saw nothing: no vehicle, no wreckage. Every instinct in my body screamed that something was off. His legs moved freely, flexing and pushing against the snow like a sprinter. Whatever injury he claimed was a lie, but I couldn't quite grasp why he wanted me close. And then I saw them. 2 figures, cloaked in black, emerging silently from the tree line. They were tall, crouched low in the shadows, moving like predators. My heartbeat skyrocketed. The man in the snowbank tensed, not toward me, but toward them, shouting orders I couldn't understand. My pulse thudded in my ears, each beat warning me to run. Something about the way he smiled, or maybe it was a grin, made my skin crawl. He wasn't pleading for help. He was signaling them. I took a cautious step back, toward my car, my hand brushing the door handle. In that instant, the man lunged at me, fast, precise, every movement calculated. The snow crunched under his boots like the drumbeat of some sinister rhythm. The two figures flanked him, cutting off my path. Panic surged. I stumbled backward, sliding across ice, hard hammering, and barely managed to yank open the driver's side door. My mind screamed at me to get inside, to lock the door, to drive. I hit the lock button just as a hand slammed onto the glass. He was close enough that I could see the rage twisting his face into something monstrous. I slammed the door fully, threw the car into gear, and felt the tires spin on ice before catching a patch of dry pavement. I fishtailed hard, narrowly missing the shoulder, but I didn't stop. The snowstorm swallowed the road behind me. And yet, in the shadowy blur of my headlights, I could swear I saw the two figures pause, watching, waiting. I didn't look back until I was nearly a mile down the road. My hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel, breath ragged, every nerve screaming. The wind howled, snow whipping across the windshield, but the road ahead was clear, or at least, it seemed clear. My headlights didn't reveal any sign of them, yet I could feel it. The presence behind me hadn't vanished. It was impossible to shake that sense of being hunted. I kept driving, tires crunching over icy patches, trying to get a signal on my phone. I needed help, but every time I glanced at the dark tree line, I thought I saw movement, shadows slipping behind snow-covered trees, just at the edge of vision. I told myself it was paranoia, that the adrenaline and the storm were playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. About 10 minutes later, I reached a clearing where the trees thinned, and I thought I might finally catch a cell signal. That's when I saw another figure, or maybe the same one. A small, dark shape darted across the snow behind me, too quick to be natural. My stomach sank. They weren't giving up. They weren't following for my car. They were following for me. My pulse spiked again, and I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires skidded, and the car fishtailed dangerously, but I didn't care. Every instinct was telling me to survive. By the time I hit the main road, traffic had vanished entirely. The world felt abandoned, every snow-laden field and frozen ditch eerily silent. My headlights caught the occasional glint of something black moving in the distance, but whenever I focused, there was nothing. I reached the state police station just before dawn, my body shaking uncontrollably. I ran inside, gasping out the story to the officer on duty. He listened, expression unreadable, before telling me to calm down and wait. A patrol car was sent back to the scene. Later, the officer told me what they found: 3 distinct sets of footprints leading into the tree line, partially obscured by drifting snow. And near the edge of the forest, hidden behind trees, was a pile of heavy rope and large rocks. No vehicles, no signs of a struggle, just those footprints and the tools of whatever operation had been set up in the woods. The officer didn't sugarcoat it. Whoever I had encountered wasn't looking to steal my car. If that had been the case, they would have taken it and left. The rope and rocks suggested something far more deliberate. They had been preparing to trap someone, maybe me. I drove home in silence, the snowstorm fading but the unease lingering. The road no longer felt like a path, it felt like a corridor into their territory, a place I had narrowly survived. I haven't taken that back road since. I still drive late at night, still work the same warehouse, but the thought of stopping for someone in the snow terrifies me. It doesn't matter if they're alone, injured, or pleading. I've learned the hard way, not every call for help is what it seems. Some of them are warnings. Some of them are traps. And some of them are part of operations hidden in the woods, watching, waiting, and hunting. Even now, months later, I sometimes see shadows in the distance while driving, and I can't shake the memory of those eyes in the snowbank, or the feeling that they were still out there, somewhere, marking their territory. I'll never know who they were, or what they planned, but I do know one thing: they are still out there, and I am still alive only because I ran.